welcome back to After Hours Movie Podcast. We are here now on episode 11. What? That's crazy.
We made it past 10.
Can't believe we did the double digits.
A lot of people thought the world would end before we made it to 11.
I know, it's just amazing. Well, we had yet again another poll for these set of movies, and you guys helped us decide. And we just want to say thank you everyone who voted, because we had an outstanding number of people. At least 50% of the people that saw our story actually voted on it. So kudos to you, and hopefully we can interact on the next one together. For this episode, we had 3 movies that were chosen by moi.
Who are you?
I'm Riley, by the way. And this person next to me is
Justin.
He's asleep, sort of. And
Rochelle.
And
Bremen. That's my name.
Okay. Moving past introductions, I guess we're going straight into the
People
movie.
know who we are. We're on episode 11.
Know. We're 11. Okay, it's past introductions. We have to do this every time.
It doesn't matter who we are.
Whatever. You know. Anyways, there were 3 movies. Guys, there's really no theme for this one. They had just been on my list, on my notes, on my phone for a while, and I was just like, this gives me a reason to watch it. So for the first one we chose on our poll was Birdman. Basically, for this movie, washed up superhero decides to make a Broadway show, and he thinks he ain't got shit, basically, and is kind of losing his mind and is going a little cuckoo. Anyways, that was the first movie. Has Michael Keaton in it. And yeah, got an Academy Award for Best Picture. So, pretty good movie. Then we have number 2, which was Memento, which was directed by Christopher Nolan. Guy has short-term memory loss and is trying to remember how his wife got murdered, basically. Very short synopsis. I had never seen it. I heard it's a bit of a mind bender, just like most of Christopher Nolan's movies. One of his earlier ones, for sure. I have to admit, I voted for it. I kind of wanted it to win, but it's okay.
Get wrecked, loser.
And then the last one was Doctor Strangelove, and
How I stopped worrying. How I stopped
something
worrying.
who
and
bombed
loved
me.
the bomb.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Kubrick. I'm sorry I got that wrong. But Doctor Strangelove, number 3, crazy American general decides to push the button, start a nuclear holocaust of sorts, and they're in a room full of generals and they're trying to stop this man. It's full of politics, full of craziness, and it's an early Stanley Kubrick film. And another one I really wanted to see. I honestly don't know too much about it, except the fact that it's a Kubrick film, and it's probably going to be crazy, weird, and strangely good in an odd way. Anyways, we chose none other than Birdman. And, yeah, what were your guys' thoughts?
Well, before we get into the movie, can I tell us a small story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, story time. Under a blanket fort. Let's go.
Riley posted the poll, and probably half an hour later, I get a text from my good friend Dave. We're shouting out Dave here tonight. He texts me and he goes, oh my God, you have to watch Birdman. I was like, what? And he was like, I didn't even look at the other options. I just voted Birdman. And I was like, all right, man. And he was like, if you do an episode on Birdman, I'm going to start listening to your podcast.
So we have one more listener.
Dave, if you made it this far, give us a comment down below on what you think so far, and anyone else who made it this far, comment down below, and give Dave a compliment.
Thanks, Dave.
Wow. Yeah. All right.
Give him a big old thumbs up.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Little fun facts about this movie. Well, first off, it won by 50%. So
you're welcome, Dave.
Yeah, the people voted, and they really wanted this one to win.
Dave phoned all his friends.
Yeah, that was
I
weird.
wouldn't be surprised.
Kept on looking at it and being like, "Who's voting for this movie?"
He made more Instagram accounts.
I think he has 3.
Movie was released in 2014. It was directed by Alejandro Gonzalez. I'm not going to pronounce the other part of his name because I do not know how. And the cinematography was by Emmanuel Lubetsky. Yeah, this movie won a ton of awards. It like freaking sweeped in Academy Awards. It got Best Picture, it got cinematography, it got for its writing, like its original screenplay. It got a ton of other awards as well, in other different things as well, like Screen Actors Guild Award, got Outstanding Performance. It got Golden Globe for Best Actor. So this
A sweep.
This is a long list. Yeah, I honestly I had heard very mixed reviews about this movie. I had heard that people hated it, and then I had heard people told me you need to watch it today, and you need to see this movie. So I personally loved it. What did you guys think of the movie choice?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun, especially all the way it was shot and how it kind of made it look like it was all mostly in one take. And I imagine that would be really hard in the writing and executing that with the camera and all that, but it was still engaging despite appearing to be one shot. And it was really interesting too because the camera work, like you were right in their face at times, and it was really, I don't know, it's a different perspective, I feel like, because you're not cutting to your classic over the shoulders, close ups. Like the camera was just sometimes right up in their face, or there's a lot of following behind the actor as well. And yeah, it was really cool. There's hidden cuts obviously, but I think it said there's 16 visible cuts in
That's
the film.
still not a lot though
No.
for a 2-hour movie.
And since there's so many long takes, it took like only 2 weeks to edit the whole film.
Yeah,
So
which is great for the editor.
yeah.
That's amazing.
They just
Actually.
throw it in
They're
the
like,
timeline.
"Oh."
It's done.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, should we edit this movie? Oh, we tried to do all one takes. Oh, so you mean you just did really long takes? Okay, I will edit it. No worries.
Wow.
Easy job for me.
The hardest editing part was probably the one scene with like effects in it.
Yeah.
And the mirror.
The mirror.
We gotta figure out how they don't
Yeah.
show cameras and mirrors. I
Yeah.
don't get it.
Something that we'll never know, I think.
Maybe if we have to Google it, YouTube it. If anyone knows, how do you get rid of camera
Can you
reflections?
just make a camera invisible? Is
Yeah.
that a thing yet? Have they invented that yet?
Invisible cloak.
Or maybe that was part of the post work.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Removing the camera. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. I thought it was great, and I like what you said, Rochelle, about them not having just like classic over the shoulder conversations, because every conversation was from one perspective.
Yeah.
Because the camera was one shot for like every conversation, so you never got that flip. It was just one person. I thought that was really neat.
In a way, though, right? Because there were moments where it would go around
Yeah.
people.
That's true.
And then there'd be moments where it go off and then follow other people and then
Yep.
connect back.
Well, the
to
whole
it.
movie, we were talking about this last week on Chungking Express, how following different people, and this movie, that's how it transitioned.
Yeah,
Every
too.
scene was like character in room, another character enters, says something, and then follows new character out of room into new scene.
Yeah.
Like that was the entire movie, and I thought it was really cool. But yeah, I loved it. Loved the camera work. Loved the cinematography. Thought the acting was all phenomenal. Especially Edward Norton's character. I think it was really cool how when he was alone with Emma Stone's character, he was a completely different person than when he was with anyone else. I thought that was a pretty neat touch.
There's times where I did not like his character at
But
all.
that's the point. Of,
That's
you
why
don't,
I
you
know,
don't
but,
like him.
like,
But then
yeah.
you see him when he's alone, and he's just this
Yeah, near
totally
the
different
end, I was
character.
like, okay.
yeah.
Um,
But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really did. And I didn't know a lot about it going in, so it was a pleasant surprise.
I knew how it was gonna end. I knew nothing about the movie except for the ending, and it was unfortunately spoiled to me many years ago. And I just remember just seen posters of it and people saying, "Oh, Birdman, watch Birdman." I've just never seen it. I've always wanted to watch it. This was an emotionally tough movie. Funny enough, it had its comedic elements and everything, but for some reason I was so locked into it. Like even the cinematography and the filmmaking, I was in. I was in there. The way that it was filmed and the way that the camera just bounced around characters, but like no cuts. It's like I was with the whole chaos of a Broadway show happening. It was a very immersive movie, and just even when we were with the individual characters, it felt very intimate and it felt very one-on-one. Yeah, this was a movie I think a lot of creatives can relate to, with that I'm going to be doing something really, really cool. Oh, this is shit. I should just give up. I'm worthless. I'm stupid. And then we almost get an outside perspective when we're away from that character, and everyone's just like, wow, it's really good. But they don't hear that. They don't hear that it's really good. They only hear their internal thoughts. And I loved the concept of the Birdman. Birdman wasn't just this character that he played, Michael Keaton's character, at the start of his career that just kickstarted his whole life. No. The Birdman was that other part of his brain that was almost his motivator, but at the same time, the thing that chipped him down. You're worthless. What you're doing is stupid. This is lame. You're lame. But at the same time, it's like, you're better than this. You can be better. We all have that voice inside of our heads, and it fluctuates. It goes up and down all the time in any sort of creative process. Jesus.
And what a great casting for that character too.
Absolutely.
Michael Keaton, who played Batman,
He was
who
Batman.
has a history in
I forgot about
like
that.
superhero movies, has been in superhero movies since as Vulture.
Yeah.
I something that I struggled with this movie was it felt like they were having a commentary on kind of modern cinema and acting. And that kind of like, because they kept bringing up the modern Marvel movies, and it's like, oh, like they're huge blockbusters and blah, 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 blah. And then at the same time, they're saying, oh, people in film aren't acting. Only in Broadway are you acting, right? Like those were pretty prevalent themes, but I'm not 100% sure I understood the whole commentary on modern like superhero movies and stuff. Like, is it that it's not proper film or like storytelling?
Well, I think it was like the idea of like him just being almost like an icon, more than an actual like actor. Like he was almost like a celebrity.
And
Is what the critic, there was like a critic for the New York Times that she said she was gonna like destroy his play or whatever because she hated everything that he stood for, which was basically like taking your status and then just feeling like you can do whatever you want with it, and then destroying what she considered like art just because he could use it because of his fame. I don't know, maybe it's like the idea of like nepotism a bit, like people who feel like that they can just do whatever because they've been given whatever. But I mean, I don't know. I guess there was undertones of that. There's a lot of undertones of many things. Like, I felt like when I saw that, and like what you touched on was that, there's so many, we see so many actors and so many like singers who've like gone through mental health things or, have ultimately like, killed themselves. And it's crazy because there's all these people out there that like listen to their music, watch their movies, like adore them, love them. And it's just like it's almost like this idea of like lost in translation. Like, you're so scared that nobody's gonna like your stuff. And you're like, let's cancel the play. And then meanwhile, there's people who are spending $500 for a ticket just to see his play. It's just like, it's wild how that can like come to be, I felt like that movie really portrayed that, like that how that chaotic mindset can get so like disillusioned, and you're just like on another world almost.
I'm just thinking about the scene when he was like imagining like the world kind of being destroyed around him, and Birdman like saving people, and like there's like this random like action sequence in it, but it's all in his head. And there's a line of dialogue in there that was like, you'll see how their eyes light up or something like that. And it was almost directed to the audience, right? I thought that was interesting, and I feel like that's saying something about how modern like movies, superhero movies and whatnot, it's all just action, 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 and that's what draws us in, right? It's drugs, sex, and violence, right? Are the three things that sell, and it even in that scene, I was sitting there and I was like watching, and I was mesmerized by the movie. Then all of a sudden it was action. And I was kind of like, whoa, and like I kind of lit up a little bit, right? Like I felt that, and I was like, holy shit! And then it was that line of dialogue, and I was like, what? They just read me like a book, you know? Is it? And I don't know. I feel like it was saying something there, and maybe I'm like on the precipice of understanding it. I feel like I am, but I just like I can't quite get there.
I feel like a part of me was kind of like when I was watching that happen, I was just thinking about like if that were you, right? If you made a movie and all that crazy stuff was happening, like you were on that set and you were Birdman, how could you like go back to like real life in a weird way? Like, you know what I mean? Like you're in this like insane movie where you're fighting these like alien robot vulture things coming down from like the stories of buildings, and you're watching things get exploded, and that's your day. Like that's your day on set. And I just was like, it's crazy to me to be like, how is that not maybe a form of acting, right? Like how are you not an actor if you're like experiencing that sort of stuff? Like, but I mean, I don't know.
You've just touched on what the main character was going through.
Yeah.
He hit the peak. He was not Regan anymore. He was Birdman. That's it. He reached his limit. Whenever he was on the streets, it wasn't Regan. It was Birdman.
Yeah.
True.
So now he was at a point in his life where I need to be a guy and I want to reach that peak that was Birdman. But he couldn't get there.
But as himself, right?
Yeah, and he had his alter ego, or that mindset where he was on top of the world before. He even had a more grungy voice as his alter ego, the Birdman.
Mm-hmm.
Superheroes. Listen, when you get a superhero role, you're not just the guy anymore. When you think of Robert Downey Jr., you don't think of Robert Downey Jr. initially. You think Iron Man. That comparison they made was perfect. The superhero movies were on the complete rise. I feel like for this movie, there was no better time.
Actually, that's true. It would have been almost more possibly eye-opening to have watched it in that time frame, because now we have a bit of a different light, I think, about superhero movies now. They're pumping them out like they're 40-year-old fanboy Hallmark movies. That's pretty much, I mean, here's the thing, there's still a couple of good ones, but there is a lot of really bad like stuff coming out now. And I remember when they first came out, like people were stoked, and not to say people aren't stoked now, but there's a lot of misses and a few hits, and before they were just pumping them out like left, right, and center,
And they were good.
and people were like on that train, and there had really not been that, like, it was almost like a revitalization from the past where there were those Superman and those Batman movies, but now they were like cool and like full of action and Tony Stark and
Well, before too, it was almost like the first Iron Man movie came out, and it was like, oh, I'm too cool for superhero movies,
yeah.
And now it's like the hip thing and the in thing is to be into superhero movies,
Yeah.
Yeah,
because it had an AC/DC soundtrack and it was badass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, they couldn't have picked a better superhero for like the trend to begin. Indestructible metal man that has a bunch of money is just like cool and hip. Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
They're running out of cool superhero characters, and
Well,
honestly,
no, they're just writing bad scripts.
it could be that too. Cape fatigue is what it's called, is when they're pumping out so many superhero movies that you're kind of over it.
Yeah. It's not even just being over it, it's just the same plot over and over. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, superhero comes in, saves the day. Oh,
the same
superhero comes
structure.
in, saves the day. It's like,
People just want something new and different, and I guess they've got like a formula,
Yeah.
and the formula gets old. So
It's almost like we should be watching some superhero movies that doesn't follow the formula.
ooh.
wait, are we talking about a different movie? Wait, are we talking about Birdman?
Maybe not Birdman, but maybe another movie coming up.
Ooh.
Oh no. Are you...
I'm possibly
Oh,
looking at the next
no.
set of movies. Anyway, let's continue about Birdman. Yeah, this This movie was fun. Aside from all the deep elements and everything, it was fun. It was fun to be in the action, but also be in those scenarios where, Regan's robe gets caught in the backstage door, and you're like, oh my God, no one's coming to help him. He's gonna have to take that thing off, and then he's waltzing through the streets doing a power walk, and you're just like, oh my gosh, the whole thing was just, I enjoyed it, and of course, the drums kicking in every once in a while.
How about that fourth wall drum set, dude? That was insane.
That was wonderful.
That was like, when I saw that, I was like, yes! I was so happy because it just kind of broke the realms of reality, and the movie was really starting to do that. I felt like in that part, and I was like, no freaking way did they have a fourth wall, drum dude. Like, I love this.
Yeah, there was a couple points in the movie they had just like a random dude sitting at a drum set, like playing the music that was playing, and they would just like pass him by, and it would be in places like in the kitchen of the studio or whatever, right? And so it didn't make sense for him to be there, but it was
It was a nice little cherry on top.
It was
I
great.
liked it a lot.
I also really quick on a just funny of like the fourth wall thing. At the very beginning, we almost get elements that Regan is somewhat supernatural, or he has some sort of superpowers of some kind, and even the voice in his head says, "People have no idea what you're capable of." I think that maybe wasn't meant to be for the fact that he has superpowers, but it's the fact that, I'm super talented. People don't know what I'm capable of doing. I can make something really cool. I can produce some really cool art. But the way they portrayed it was like, oh yeah, he's got some special abilities, which we learn near the end of the movie. No, it's all in his head.
But what was that last scene then?
Honestly, I think that was a spiritual way of saying that he's become an angel and he's flying up to heaven. And his daughter can finally see that he's grown his wings.
So maybe in a weird way she saw that, like maybe it was like a spiritual moment.
I would say so.
Well, at the end though, like with the subtitles, it had her character like, oh, she laughs, but then it also had him laughing too, which I would have not have heard if the subtitles weren't there.
Interesting.
But it did show up that he laughs. So
to put context, it's kind of left up to the audience whether to figure out if he committed suicide by jumping out a window or if he started flying away, essentially. And
but he laughs.
So I don't know. It was
kind of weird. Like if he was flying away, I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
He was just floating there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because every other time it was fake, like the different powers that he had, you could tell it was fake. Because when they had that scene when he was destroying his room, it looked like it was like he was using his powers. But the moment the other guy walked in, that's when he was physically grabbing everything. And you could tell like, oh, that was just more in his head. But at the end,
unless maybe it was a metaphor for her seeing what he was capable of, because his powers and the voice in his head were talking about wait for the others to see what you're capable of. Maybe the end was finally his daughter seeing what he was capable of, and maybe he didn't even jump out the window.
Maybe he climbed down to the next floor. I don't know.
I think it was a more
climbed up to the upper floor. I don't know.
A more spiritual ending, or a more like not like a literal sense that he jumped out the window, but a more open-minded sort of ending, which I kind of liked. I think if it was just like, yeah, he stayed on the street, it's like, what kind of ending is that for this type of movie? What sort of redemption do you get from that? Even if he did die, just the fact that we see, I guess, just the action alone of his daughter almost looking up. I don't know. I do like that sort of open-ended ending for that sort of film. So
I like the fake ending too, where he's on stage in the scene in the play, he kills himself with a gun. But we see earlier on that he grabs a real gun, and he goes down to the stage, and everyone's like, "Oh no!" Like as watching the movie, we're like, "He's going to kill himself," and then he shoots himself, and you're like, "Oh, that's it, he's dead." And we see the crowd give a standing ovation, and then the movie cuts away, and then it like cuts back, and he's in a hospital room, and then it's revealed that he didn't shoot himself in the head; he just shot his own nose off. And it's like that was hilarious to me. It was just like, because they were talking earlier on in the play about a botched suicide attempt for not being loved. And then he did the same thing. And yeah.
Well, I knew as soon as the Edward Norton character said, "Get me a
Yeah.
real effing gun," or whatever, I was like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Like, this is almost like a Chekhov's gun, but for a fake one. We're swapping it for a real one.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he did use it, though.
Yep.
He did.
Blow his nose off.
Yep. Shot his own nose off.
I would like to say, watching this film, if you guys haven't seen this movie, remind me a lot of Black Swan. They are very, very similar.
I've been wanting to watch it. I haven't seen it.
If you really like this movie, honestly, I would say watch Black Swan. Has very like similar kind of like character structure, where it's like one person who is just trying to be either like she's trying to be the best basically, and she has these dual characters and it's all about based off the Swan Princess play or whatever. And I thought it was very interesting watching that movie and then having seen that movie so many times because I really do love it. But they were very similar in their storyline, except I would say the ending is a little bit different. But very, very cool though to see those two comparisons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like this movie.
Yeah.
And I think with the cinematography and the acting and the kind of commentary it had, I want to give it like a 9.
Wow.
9 lost noses out of 10.
Okay. That's a good one.
Cool. I would have to say there is one shot in the movie I was waiting to watch. It's one shot that I've like seen pictures of and like little snippets of, and he's walking to go get a bottle of whiskey, and it's like this row of lights, and it's all very like shallow depth of field, so everything's like bokeh. And that scene was so beautiful to me. I loved every aspect of it. I thought it was a stunning shot, and the whole scene was just so it's definitely now my Roman Empire, I think, in like catalog of shots that I have that like enter my brain sometime, because that it did not let down. So personally, I would say this movie is probably, I would give it probably a 9. Birdman sitting on a toilet out of 10.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Listen, I am also going to give this a 9 out of 10. To be more specific, let's say 9 nude Edward Nortons out of 10.
Mm.
Yeah, this was really good. I enjoyed it.
I like how like naked Edward Norton entered your brain. He
It was
must have
the-
really left an impression on you, Justin.
Honestly, yeah, he was like, he's going to the fitting room, and I'm just like, just take your pants off, man. And then he's just like, I'm taking everything off. I'm like, okay, I don't think that's normally you just strip in front of everybody, but all right.
And the tailor was like, holy shit,
Yeah.
why did you wear your underwear?
Even usually he's like, oh god, we gotta get everything refitted. And yeah, I don't know, for some reason, yeah. That left an impression on me. It's late. I'm tired. It's after hours after all. Rochelle, what would you review this?
I feel pressured now because you guys gave it like such high ratings. My instinct though is not to give it as a high rating. I would probably give it I'm more thinking of the out ofs, not the number, because I got that locked in.
Okay, that is the most difficult part about it.
It is, yeah.
I
Yeah.
took a moment. I was like, I'll give it a, and then it was like, as I was saying, I was like, what am I gonna say?
Okay. Well, while you're thinking, can I bring up my favorite shot in the movie that like blew my mind?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a scene when there's 2 people talking on a roof, and we see like the top of a couple buildings, and it's nighttime, and then it transitions to daytime with the same shot, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then the camera like starts like booming down and panning down, but it's in a new location and it's not on the roof anymore. And then it like goes back across the street and then like through a window behind it. And like, I'm sure there was a cut in there because it couldn't go through that window, but the shot just blew my mind because it was like the same perspective of the buildings. And then it was in a new location in the same perspective of the buildings as the camera moved again.
And
I'm
probably
sure the
on a-
buildings were done in post.
And probably on a different piece of equipment.
Oh, probably.
Like that was probably a massive crane
Yeah,
or something. That was
100%. But like, just like those buildings must have been in post because there's no way they could get a shot of the buildings and then move the camera and get the same shot of the two buildings. But that shot was just like it turned to day and I was like, oh, that's cool. Then the camera started booming down. I was like, holy shit. And then it started going across the street. I was like, what am I watching? Went through a window and I was just like, that's it. I'm done. That's so good. That's so good.
I definitely want to see if there's any like behind the scenes like videos of
Yeah.
how they
Yeah,
shot it because I think that would be super cool to watch.
No kidding.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just with all the camera work. I mean, props to the camera guy too. Like
And the focus puller.
Oh,
Dude,
yeah.
I was sweating for him.
Could you imagine like focus pulling like a 10-minute scene and at the end you're just like, yes, there's a part in the middle. I think it was a little soft.
Like he did so good. Like there was parts where it's like he drank the bottle and then he pulled to the bottle and then like I wouldn't have even seen, like it was so seamless, the pull back to the face.
Mhm.
And like yeah, there was just so many moments where I was like they pan over to the door and then the door is in focus and I'm just like, bro, like impressive.
How many
like,
marks do you have on your
Yeah. Like
focus
wow.
roll? Jesus.
So good.
Anyway, Rochelle, you got your rating yet?
Alright. I'm gonna give it a 7.5 abandoned bathrobes out of 10.
Nice.
It's a good one. I like that.
That's a good one.
Yeah, this was a pretty high rating here
That
overall.
was, yeah.
Is there anything that like lowers your rating? Is there anything in particular?
I don't know. I feel like it'd have to be a whole other
Part 2 coming
Whole
soon.
new discussion.
Part
Um,
2, Rochelle breaks down her 7.5 rating.
The extended cut.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And it's just it's only because the bathrobe he didn't go back for it.
That's
the
why
only
you,
reason. No,
that's why
Dude,
it
how
was
about
But-
the fact why was it so far away? Like why did he have to go like
Well, it was
Yeah, he lost his bathrobe and he walked for like 5 minutes to get
I
back
know,
to
I
the
was
same
like-
building he just lost his bathrobe in.
he took the scenic route, alright?
Yeah,
He's
he
like,
did.
I'm already undressed, like might as well see what the city happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to get my steps in. All right, well,
That was a good movie.
I guess that's it.
To any of our listeners out there, if you have any suggestions for movies
Ooh.
or something you think we should watch and talk about, please send us a message, comment,
Yes.
do whatever, get it to us. And
We might be doing like a little question on our Instagram.
yeah, and
And asking if you guys have suggestions, and we might just pick one of yours.
yeah, and we might start giving you guys shout outs. So yeah, please do. Please send us anything you think we should watch. We'd love to hear suggestions.
Absolutely.
Because our puny brains can only think of so many movies.
Nonsense.
Nah, I've got a list.
No, I also got a list.
I
But
got
hey,
a list
listen,
too.
we want to interact with you guys out there. We want to hear your suggestions. We want to watch something new. So yeah, please send them our way via, I think Instagram would probably be the best
Or
way.
just
Yeah.
comment if you're on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube,
a
comment.
question on our story. We'll ask somebody or ask everybody
Yeah.
what should we watch next, and we'll just pick
Pick
out
something.
of the hat or even something.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Possibly coming soon.
Yeah.
Maybe. Don't hold
your
your breath.
choice.
Okay. Well,
Cool.
Random word, Rochelle.
Tree trunk.
we're not doing this, are we?
Hey, thank you guys for watching,
All right,
or
have a good night,
listening,
everybody.
or whatever.
Good night.
And we'll talk to y'all on the next one.
Tree fort.
Tree
fort.
fort.